So, Karwan, today you have some questions. Today is Sunday afternoon for the UK crowd. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Thailand. And today, you could say it would be kind of an important day in the sense that we're going to kind of put all the pieces of the teaching of the Buddha together. So, thank you for the question. Go ahead, Karwan.
Thank you for thank you for the willingness to answer it. As you know, for the last few months, I've been here almost every week, and I've collected a lot of information. But I don't know how to put them all together. Yeah, one of the important things I think Anapanasati, and we have one Anapanasati, and we have jhanas, and then the Four Noble Truths and the five aggregates. The Noble Eightfold Path, the seven factors of awakening, the five hindrances, the fetters, and Paticca Samuppada. And there is probably also one or two more things that I have not picked them up. Basically what to do with it. Let's say
All right.
Anapanasati and jhanas. How do they?
Well, let's start at the top. That in fact, what I would recommend is somebody could make a chart. Hello, Daniel. I'm glad to see you.
To make a chart? How can we make? How can we make?
Well, it would be like a top-down diagram. We'll start at the top and then draw lines under it, and then draw lines under that to get kind of a triangular style. Um, uh,
Oh
it's not
yeah,
a Venn diagram. It's just a flow chart.
yeah. It is. I think it's possible to share the screen somewhere, but
All right. So no need to do that right now. So after a while, when we finish this, we'll give Daniel a chance. I think he has a few words. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the place to start is not with Anapanasati or jhana. The place to start is the way that the Buddha said it, and this is possibly the most important thing that we can say is that the Buddha only taught one thing. He only taught one thing, both formally and now, and that's in a number of suttas, including the last time that I was on a call with Steve on Guru Viking. I had him to read a thing to where the Buddha says that I don't declare this and I don't declare that. I don't declare the world. I don't declare the body and the soul or anything about any of that kind of stuff, which is normally attributed to Buddhism. But in fact, we can leave it in the label of Buddhism, but it's not the teaching of the Buddha. That the Buddha only taught one thing, and that was in the Pali, dukkha, dukkha nirodha. But in the sutta that Steve read, he breaks it down into the Four Noble Truths. So you can say the top one is dukkha, dukkha nirodha, and then the next line under that is going to be the Four Noble Truths. Okay, that's the important point. Is that the teaching of the Four Noble Truths is the only thing that the Buddha taught, and that everything else that you've asked actually fits and falls under that. So let's go over the Four Noble Truths. Let us say uh, in general, and then we'll talk about them in detail. The first one is there is disappointment. There is dissatisfaction. There is dukkha. When that satisfaction is really huge, it can be called suffering. But the Buddha did not use the word suffering when he was talking about dukkha. He was talking about small, consistent dissatisfactions, disappointments, not getting what we want, etc., like that. Then the second noble truth is that there is a cause for this dukkha. Now, that word cause is a very important one because it filters down all throughout the teachings of the Buddha. Cause and effect. This happened because of something. So the dukkha happened because of something, and what that something is, the primary element would be ignorance. And so the third noble truth, which isn't talked about very much, is that the release from this dissatisfaction, the release from our disappointments, can be immediately available. It's not a long, long journey. It's immediately available to us. And that is by making a change to the cause. If you change the cause, the effect is going to be different. And then the fourth noble truth is actually that there is a method to do this. That method, by the way, is called the Eightfold Noble Path. But we can also see that the Eightfold Noble Path has to start someplace, and where it starts is not noble. It starts within dukkha. And so if we can practice correctly, we move out of ordinary mind state into a noble mind state, and therefore then we can practice the Eightfold Noble Path. So this is the framework of the foundation. The Eightfold Noble Path is one of the Four Noble Truths. It's the fourth one. And so if you can understand that that's the only thing the Buddha teaches, then that makes it very simple. He only teaches one thing, and that is to see that we're dissatisfied and then change our mind, change our attitude, change our thoughts, change our posture, change our feelings right then and there so that you're in a state of nobility. Couldn't be simpler than that. But unfortunately, there's this thing called Buddhism, which is a great big pile of stuff that's been added on to the teachings of the Buddha, and it's very hard to see the actual teachings of the Buddha because there's so much junk that's been added to it. And the analogy that I would use, Karwan, is that imagine that there is a shrine, a holy shrine, a holy place, and there's only room for one, including there's no room even for his backpack or his baggage. So he has to leave the baggage outside of the holy place. And this holy place is available to each one of us, but we can only get there by dropping all of our baggage. Now, the problem is that over many centuries, there's been a whole lot of baggage left in front of a shrine, to the point that you might even have to get a tractor to tractor yourself over it, or maybe climb it like a mountain to get over all of that baggage that is not in the shrine just to get to the shrine. And the most beautiful part of the shrine is that when you finally get to the shrine, it's empty. And the only thing that's there to be put in there is you. And when you go into the shrine, you're also empty. So, with the empty shrine, the reason that it's empty is because of all of this baggage that other people have believed, other people have taught, other religions teach, that is not the actual teachings of the Buddha. If we can understand that, then we can say that the teachings of the Buddha is the shrine, and inside the shrine, and Buddhism is a great big mountain, a huge field of baggage that is not the teachings of the Buddha, that was left outside, that people bring. And you can see how that happens. In fact, that somebody comes to the Dhamma, you can actually see that on Discord. And when they first come to the Dhamma, they bring a whole lot of crap, and they start putting their crap all over Discord. And then it's the job of the nobles to start pointing that out and say, no, that's not what the Buddha taught. That what the Buddha taught is actually quite simple. So from that, let us look at it in two ways now. The first important thing to do is to recognize that things are not as comfortable. They're not as, let us say, satisfying or satisfactory upon inspection. That in fact we get used to stuff. It's possible, as an example, to get used to the fact that you've got a rock or a stone in your shoe, and you walk around with that stone in your shoe, and it's just too much trouble to take your shoe off and dump the sand or dump the rock. But once you do dump the sand out of the shoe and put the shoe back on, it's so much more comfortable. And so a lot of people have gotten used to their dissatisfactions and think that that's okay. And therefore, those are the ones who are the slowest to actually get the Dhamma, is because they think that it's okay to keep a rock in my shoe. Or a better way of saying it is to keep a rock in my head, to stay dissatisfied, because coming out of our dissatisfaction sounds like too much trouble, too much effort. But in fact, the Eightfold Noble Path points out that it's not so much trouble if you start in the right way. Now, ordinary Buddhism teaches that the place to start is by watching your behavior and clean up your clean up your actions. That's the ordinary. So they start with sila, they start with morality. This is in fact taught to every child in every town, in every village, in every state, in every nation, in every religion. We start by giving children a bunch of rules. They could be the Ten Commandments, it could be the Sharia law, it can be the precepts, it can be any number of things. But it basically comes to, if you do bad, you're going to get your butt kicked. If you do bad, you're going to get you're going to have bad results. And this is then has become the universal law of karma. If you do good, you'll get good results, and if you do bad, you'll get bad results. But that's not part of the teaching of the Buddha. And so later we'll talk about karma in more detail as what really is the teaching of the Buddha. But right now we can see that the cause of our dissatisfaction is the fact that we are not looking at the rocks in our head. We're not looking at the rocks in our shoe. We're not looking and paying attention to the fact that that stuff is actually disappointing. It's unsatisfactory, even though we have gotten used to it. And so we can, in fact, by watching what we're doing, that's in fact why sila, or morality, is the first thing that people learn, is that they learn that if you do something, there will be consequences to it. But that's not really what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught, in fact, that the mind is the forerunner. You cannot have an action unless you think about that action first. You can't talk unless you think about what you're going to say. And so, in that regard, the mind is the forerunner, not our actions. And yet, the Brahmins had the idea that, oh, the actions are the important thing. That actions are like chiseling something into stone or carving it into wood, and that your speech is very much like writing it in the sand or writing it on paper, easy to destroy, and that your thoughts are very much like writing something into the air or writing it on the water, that it's gone as soon as you think it. And so, therefore, the Brahmins say that, oh, your actions are so important because it's your actions that hurt people. And the Buddha turned that upside down by saying, oh, no, the mind is the forerunner. You cannot act unless you think. So the ordinary way would be to start watching your behavior. Now, your behavior is pretty gross. That's actually a good place to start. If you got to start someplace, start with your actions. Start with your words that you use. Or if you're on Discord, start with looking at what you're posting rather than just posting whatever comes to mind. So we can go along like that until we begin to see, once we settle down, once we have our sila in order, then we can come to the point of recognizing that we have actually the mind to look at. And so by settling down, we can begin to unify the mind, and that brings on wisdom. And the wisdom then is the turning point from the ordinary Eightfold Noble Path into the Noble Eightfold Path, is because here we actually start with wisdom. We start with, in fact, investigation of the mind. Now, in the Eightfold Noble Path, the Buddha says that right view or right looking comes first. And right looking or right viewing comes first in the sense that the mind really is the forerunner. We got to really look at what the mind is doing, because the mind determines what our thoughts are, what our attitude is, whether our what our feelings are, as well as the comfort that we have in the body. So we can then operate in the sense that the first thing that we have to be able to do is to get the body comfortable. But we'll go into that a little bit later. Right now, we're going to talk about the Eightfold Noble Path has three primary qualities to it. And that is that we have to remember to look at what the mind is doing. Looking at our thoughts, looking at our feelings, looking at our attitudes. And by being able to do that, we can then use that to look at the body. So, if we are going to look and see the dissatisfaction, the uncomfortableness, now we have the option to change. If we cannot see the rocks in our head, if we cannot see the rocks in our shoe, if we cannot see that in fact those rocks are uncomfortable, cannot see that, then we're unlikely to want to change. But once we can see that those thoughts are like rocks, then we can change them by throwing those rocks out. So this is the beginning then of the Eightfold Noble Path, is based in change. Not because of the change of behavior, because people can, in fact, settle down and behave themselves, but in their mind, it's still spinning on. And so they're likely then to, let us say, soon engage in behavior that it's not appropriate. So there's the distinction then between the noble and the ordinary path. The ordinary path is that the behavior is what everybody sees. Therefore, that's what the important thing is. But in the noble path, it's what the mind is doing, because there you can actually make the changes. So we practice then the Eightfold Noble Path with a particular method, and that particular method then is anapanasati. So anapanasati then comes immediately under the Eightfold Noble Path. Now, there's a little story about that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa kind of got into trouble by teaching the Noble Dhamma in Bangkok, and upset a few Buddhists. And they had a big trial, and in that trial, which lasted about 3 months, a whole lot of stuff happened. But one of the statements he made is that the Buddha only taught one kind of meditation, and that was anapanasati. Boy, did he cause a kerfuffle with that. And all of the big schools of teaching Pali, and all the monks and everybody, they started doing the research. And this was back in the early 1930s, 1931, something like that. And that they came to the conclusion that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was right. There is no place in any of the sutras or any of the Tripitaka where anything other than anapanasati is taught as a practice or as a way of doing the Eightfold Noble Path. and you can see it directly. Now, a side point, which is one of the questions that you ask, that the Anapanasati Sutta, when you understand it in detail, you can see that, in fact, the Anapanasati Sutta is designed to get the mind into the first jhana. Now, what is the first jhana? The first jhana actually is the fruit of the Eightfold Noble Path, in the sense that by looking and making the change, we change the mind from the obstructions and the hindrances or the unwholesome thoughts that are in the mind. And I'll give you that, Karwan, is that you can understand that hindrances is that which hinders you from being in the kind of mood that you would like to be in. But the hindrances are, in fact, the disappointments, or you can actually go so far as to say the hindrances are those stones that are in your shoe. And by removing those stones, that's the most important quality of the first jhana, is the removal of the hindrances, so that you're not having unwholesome, disappointing, unsatisfactory or dissatisfying thoughts, that you begin to then change the mind into having satisfying, wholesome thoughts. So if we can then say, I can have one wholesome thought after another, after another, after another, what that means is that we're applying the mind to the wholesome and then sustaining the wholesome. Now, these are two more qualities of the first jhana, is to be able to apply the mind into wholesome and keep it staying there, to be able to keep the mind in a good state. So, in the Anapanasati Sutta is where it talks about how we go about doing this, and the first part of it would be gladdening the mind. Gladdening the mind or brightening the mind, which means that we're actually beginning to have wholesome thoughts versus unwholesome thoughts. That we actually, you can see, in fact, the way that the Eightfold Noble Path and the Anapanasati Sutta fit directly together. And that the investigation of the mind, then, which would be item number 9 of Anapanasati, is that we can begin to see not just our thoughts, but we can see our attitude. We can see the underlying cause of the actual thoughts that we have. So then that means that by brightening the mind, not only do we change the thoughts from unwholesome to wholesome, we change our attitude from unwholesome to wholesome. This is actually the practice that we're going to perform that you would call meditation. Now, as we practice this, getting the mind out of the unwholesome thoughts and out of the unwholesome attitudes, we gain an attitude of confidence. We gain the attitude that I can, in fact, change my mind. We can do that. Not only that, but if you can change your mind, change the state of mind, then that will have great influence on our feelings, so that we begin to develop the feeling of safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied. Now, in the Pali, that is actually the state called sukha. Now, sukha actually is directly opposite of the word dukkha. Why? Because we're coming out of our dissatisfactions, our disappointments, into being satisfied. That's basically all there is to it, is to get the mind into a state where you are satisfied, you're comfortable, you're safe and secure, which means no more fear. Now, on other talks I've given, I've mentioned that fear is at the basis of all of our negative or unhappy emotions, and that when we are free from any kind of fear and in a state of safety and security, then that is the state of happy or joyful feelings or emotions. And so gladdening the mind and brightening the mind, changing the mind in the Eightfold Noble Path to where we can come up to this place of feeling good, feeling great, feeling on top of the world, feeling on top of, and in fact, the best thing to say about it then would be that the mind is empty of rocks. The shoe is empty of rocks. There's no more discomfort. Everything is okay. So we can then begin to see that once in a while we'll have a peak. We'll have a wow, this is so great. And that word would then be referred to as pity. Now, along the way, by taking a deep breath or two, we can, in fact, soften the body, relax the body. And so that's also part of the first jhana, is to have a relaxed body, have feelings of sukha and piti, and having the attitude of a winner, having good, wholesome thoughts. And that, so there's 6 things: apply, sustain, free from hindrances, um, having piti, sukha. Those are the 5. And then the 6th one would be relaxed or free from suffering. So those are the first jhana factors. They're built right into the Anapanasati Sutta. It's so obvious once you can look at it and see. And also, we must mention that the Anapanasati Sutta is actually based upon the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, the 4 foundations of mindfulness are based on ancient physics, in the sense that, now we've got 92 or more elements, more to come soon as CERN gets their bigger magnets. But in the time of the Buddha, there was only 4 elements, and those elements are solid, liquid, gas, and fire. And that the Buddha took those 4 elements and turned them into the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is in fact what Anapanasati is based upon. These 4 foundations of mindfulness, also called the Satipatthana, is the body, the feelings, the mind state, and the mind's objects or the thoughts. So there we go. That's all there is to Anapanasati, with one additional point, and that is apply and sustain. We have to keep practicing until we can sustain this first jhana. Now, there are more jhanas mentioned. In fact, there's 4 of them altogether. But in Sutta number 36 in the Majjhima Nikaya, it's very clearly stated that the Buddha states that even though he's done all of the other jhanas, he couldn't sustain the first jhana, and that sustaining the first jhana is, in fact, the path to awakening. That's it. That's all there is to it, is that you get yourself into a good state, keep it there. That's all there is to it. That's the entire Noble Path, is to keep the mind in a sustained, happy state. So, show it to him.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, this 4 foundations of mindfulness that we have of the body, the feelings, and the mind, both the mind's objects and the mind state, that actually then is restated as the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates are, in fact, nothing but the 4 foundations of mindfulness, looking at it a little deeper. So you have the body and you have the feelings, but the mind is broken into 3 groups of perception, consciousness, and our memory systems, or sankhara. So the The 5 aggregates are nothing but a restatement of the 4 foundations of mindfulness with one great big twist. And that is the reason that they're teaching the 5 aggregates is that there is no you there. Now, we do attach to the body. We go to the cosmetologist. We put on makeup. We shave. We put on clothing. We do all kinds of things, even put on great big jewelry and maybe some big gold chain, because we think that if we can make the body beautiful, I am beautiful. But in fact, you are not the body. If you were the body, if you could control the body, then you could be whatever age you wanted to be. You could be a changeling. You could be a gorilla 1 minute and a sweet young girl the next. But you can't do that because you don't own the body. That at best, you're a guest. You're not the owner. The same thing is true is that you don't own the past. In fact, the past is pretty spotty. You didn't remember it right because you didn't even see it right. And now you're misapplying what you learned in your past. And so the past or your sankaras, they don't belong to you. That's just a pile of junk that you've got. The same thing with your perception or your storytelling system, that we think that, oh, that's all true because I know it's true, where in fact you just made it up. So if we can understand that there is no self within that, now we're beginning to be ready to understand what he meant by the teachings called Paticca Samuppada. Now, Paticca Samuppada actually means dependent origination. In other words, things do not just occur, everything happens because of a cause. Well, if we look at it like that, we can say that, wait a minute, isn't Paticca Samuppada nothing but the second noble truth? That's it. Everything about the second noble truth is dealt within the Paticca Samuppada. It's just more complete. There's more to it than just merely the statement of the cause of dukkha is your own ignorance, your own greed, your own ill will. But in fact, you can see the entire sequence. So we can say then that, and I'm not going to go into great detail in this talk about Paticca Samuppada, other than making the important point is that this is a way to see how the mind works in order to get us into a state of dissatisfaction. And probably the most important way of looking at that is that we get dissatisfied because we're not looking at reality. We're looking at a story that we made up about reality. And the story that we made up is the key to the dissatisfaction. All you have to do is change the story that you're telling yourself. The facts can be the same, but facts don't tell a story. We tell the story. In fact, the telling of the story would be called perception. We perceive things, we make it up. And that's what gives us our bad feelings. So if we are quite wise and see what we're doing, we can tell ourselves a different story and come up with new feelings so that we can get ourselves, in fact, into that state of sukha, into that state of satisfaction rather than being dissatisfied. All right. So the next item on the list would then be the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Sambojana. Now, this can be understood as nothing more than the Eightfold Noble Path at the end of the path. So, in the beginning, we look at the path as something that we've got to do, and then the Sambojana is looking back upon the path after it's been completed. Now, that can happen very, very quickly. If we practice correctly, there's nothing much to it. But let's look at the Sambojana and compare it to the Eightfold Noble Path. Now, the operative word, the most important word in there, is the word of unremitting. unremitting. Now, isn't that very similar to the word that I was using before, is sustain? Same word, okay? So unremitting, once we've gotten the Eightfold Noble Path going over and over and over and over again, we begin to have that unremitting. It's almost like the old Duracell commercial of the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps beating on it over and over and over again. We keep coming back to it. So now we can look at it, and what is the first item of the Sambhojana is unremitting sati. Unremitting, remembering to unremitting look at what we're doing, and then having unremitting right noble effort to change, except that in the Sambhojana, that unremitting effort is no longer an effort. Now it would be considered energy. It's sort of like inertia. Imagine yourself, I've got two examples. One is, imagine that you're pushing a car to get it to go down the road. Now, when that car is stopped, it takes a lot of pushing to push that car. But once it's going, it continues to roll all by itself, and it's actually then quite easy to keep the car rolling. Another example is somebody, a father has his daughter on a swing, and she's swinging, but she's just sitting there on that swing, and she says, "Daddy, come push me." Well, the first time he pushes, that takes effort. But once he gets it going and pushing, now she's swinging all by herself, and all he has to do is basically touch the swing to keep it going. That's what we mean by then unremitting energy, which means that it's really easy to do the effort that it takes to keep the thing going. But if you don't keep pushing just a little bit, what's going to happen to that swing? It's going to come back down and it's going to stop again. If he's going to get it going again, he has to push really hard. This is one of the big problems with people with practicing meditation, is not that they don't take the effort to get it going, it's that they don't keep the effort going, and therefore they've got to start all over again. And now that's real dukkha. Oh, I had it and now I've lost it, and now I got to work hard again to get it going. But if they would push it and keep pushing, then they would get it going. If they would do it unremittingly, just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, keep remembering, keep looking, keep pushing, then it's going to be very easy to do if we keep practicing like that. So one of the key words then would be unremitting or sustaining. And you can see the rest of the Sambhojana is nothing more than the fulfillment of the Eightfold Noble Path, including unremitting relaxation, unremitting unification of mind, which would be the samadhi, and unremitting also easygoing or balance, they call it, dynamic balance. And so the seven factors of enlightenment is nothing more than being able to keep it going. We've got the energy to keep it going, but we don't. We keep stopping. And now we got to start all over again. If you keep pushing that car, it'll keep rolling. But if you don't put any energy in it, if you just watch it roll, then it's going to come to a stop if you're on level ground. And if it stops, then you got to start pushing really hard to get it rolling again. Same thing with that swing. So this should be then the motivation that once you get the mind into a good state, let's keep it there. Because it's a whole lot easier just to keep it pushing just a little bit and keep it going, rather than having to work at getting it restarted again. So, Karwan, have I covered all the bases yet?
Yes, you have. You have. And basically, to sum it all up, is get in a good state and stay in a good state. So
Mm-hmm.
that be basically the whole teaching.
Exactly. And if you can get into a good state and stay in a good state, and all of a sudden somebody calls you a dirty, rotten liar, then can you dodge that so that you can stay in a good, wholesome state, or do you have to start over again? Oh, he wounded me. Oh, he hit me. Oh, he called me a liar. Oh, he called me a dirty, rotten crook. But look at the me's in there. Me, 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 me. And so, in fact, the main thing that stops us from practicing is the weight of me. He hurt me. He hit me. Instead of, oh, he missed. It went, his insult went that away. He doesn't know who I am because I don't know who I am. Therefore, the insults don't catch. And so this is the way we can say it then, is that we learn to play dodgeball, and we get very good at playing dodgeball. But if we get hooked and knocked down, never mind, get up, dust yourself off, and keep boogieing on down the road, dodging those balls. So in this language that we're using, I know that the Buddha's language that's translated from the old Pali into English is very highfalutin, almost tragically antique. But if we can put it in really modern language, we can see that in fact it's all very easy to do. And it's all based upon the Four Noble Truths, most specifically, let's get out of the way of our dissatisfactions. Let's move away from it. So, do you have any questions about this, Karwan?
It is much more clear than before. It's still, I'm still not satisfied with everything, let's say, but it makes more sense to just keep the Four Noble Truths and to say the fourth one is basically the Noble Eightfold Path. The second one is Samupata. Paticca
Paticca
Samupata.
Samuppada is
Paticca
nothing but the roadmap of how we get ourselves into dissatisfaction again. We get ourselves into dissatisfaction because we're not paying attention to reality. We're paying attention to the story that we made up. We're perceiving things. Now, that's a built-in mechanism. It's part of the DNA. And that the basically what that we're talking about here is that we want to know, we want to understand. And that desire to know basically is the desire to know whether things are dangerous or not. But we screw that up by not understanding that really the dissatisfaction, the danger is wanting to understand.
And that part
Wanting
is
to understand. So if we can say, "Oh, I'm confused and I don't like it because I don't understand it," you can say, "Hey, I see that. I can see that I'm confused. I can see that I'm full of doubt, and I don't have to do that. I can just relax. I don't have to know. I can just be okay the way things are. I don't have to make up a story about it. Even if I don't understand it, I'm still okay." Now, that's a hard one for Westerners because we really want to know the answer. And the answer is we don't need to know the answer in order to feel good. We can choose to feel good. We can choose to apply the mind to the whole. It's a dangerous unknown. And in fact, that's a major trait of humanity, that anything that is unknown must be dangerous. And in fact, it's probably not. This is, in fact, the cause of all wars. Every war that's ever been created is because of doubt and confusion about what that guy's going to do. Oh, I better go to hurt him first. In fact, you could say that it's the reverse of the golden rule. Jesus says, "Do unto others the way that you want them to do unto you." And we can turn that around in by adding the phrase, "But do it first." You go get them first before they get you. Okay, and this is why all conflicts, all arguments, all fights, whether they're personal or through nations, it's because we're making up stories because we feel afraid, instead of just looking at that fear directly and say, "Hey, right now, there's nothing to be afraid of." Right now, he's not attacking me. So right now, I'm okay. I don't have to go attack him first. He's not attacking me.
Is it also a
So
matter of
go ahead.
intelligence? Dhammarato,
Go
is it
ahead.
also a matter of intelligence? You hear
Right.
me?
It's natural to feel afraid. That's what our internal instincts is all about. It's called self-preservation instinct. And we have to be able to see enough clearly that there is nothing to be afraid of. That right now, none of you have any alligators in your room. You don't have the police knocking on your door. Right now, everything is okay. But we don't think about it like that. We're not looking at what's not there. We're worried about what's not there might get us. And so we wind up with a baseline of fear rather than cultivating a baseline of everything is okay. I'm safe enough. I don't have to preserve myself because there's nothing that's there worth um, protecting. And not only that, but everybody else is so busy protecting themselves that they're not bothered with me at all. If I'm not bothering them, they're going to be worried about who is bothering them. And so the reality is that we're actually quite safe, secure. And if we can see that and recognize that, then we can become comfortable and then satisfied. We can be in that state of sukha. We can be in that state of everything is okay, not a problem in the world. Everything is all right. You see how simple this teaching really is. It grew complicated because we added the Eightfold Noble Path when in fact there's really nothing to it. Just see that you don't feel good and change that into feeling good. That could be the entire teaching of the Buddha. In fact, that's what the Dukkha Dukkha Nirodha is see that you're uncomfortable and change it to where you're comfortable. Nothing
Dhammarato,
much.
I really think you should write a book. Should write a book without using all those Buddhist terms. Don't even use the Four Noble Truths. Just completely new in the new language that we have. Because I think those all those terms, and I really still call them concepts, which they maybe
Mhm.
even are not concepts,
Right.
are
I
more
have it.
hint.
I have it this way. Don't worry. Be happy.
Yeah, I think that's much better. Maybe like a simple book for kids, like
Hmm.
simple book for kids with simple. This is it
Right. The
instead of
book. You
even
could
all
call it.
those Pali
You could
words
call it
make
the teachings of the Buddha for dummies, or maybe the teaching of the Buddha for kids, and it's only one
yes,
page long. That's how
yes,
simple it can be.
yes.
Nothing to it.
Because even all those using all those Pali words in one way, it sounds good because you are using the words from Buddha's time, but they are
Hmm.
confusing. They are more confusing than good. Let's say anapanasati, bro. That word alone is just I don't know what it means. And
Uh huh.
all those big words instead of just saying, okay, yeah, be relaxed, be happy, everything
Yeah.
is
Just
okay.
take a deep breath and relax. That's all there is to it. Take a
Yeah.
deep breath and relax your feelings. Take a deep breath and relax your attitude. Take a deep breath and relax your thoughts. That's all there is to it.
I think also in other fields, let's say if you look in accounting or in a business, they also use some big difficult words because that way then they feel like oh they know something important that we don't know,
Exactly.
instead of yeah, it's all not that complicated as they make it sound.
It really is not complicated at all. But because we want to know all about it, that's why so many people within the teaching of the Buddha get confused about anapanasati and the five aggregates and the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path and the seven factors of enlightenment and all of that kind of stuff that's in there is really not all of that necessary. In fact, there is a sutta to where the monks, the teachers, brought this one monk to the Buddha a real bumpkin. He couldn't remember any of the sutras. He couldn't remember any of the stuff that they tried to teach him. And so the Buddha gave him a piece of cloth and said, do this. Keep that piece of cloth in your hand. And as you're messing with that cloth with your hand, have this little phrase of, as I'm wiping my hands, I'm cleaning my mind. That's all there is to it. Just clean the mind. Clean the mind of what? All unwholesome, all fear, all dissatisfactions. Just sit there and be satisfied. Remember to keep doing that over and over again. So that's, in fact, an example of the teaching of the Buddha being very, very simple. I don't know why we don't teach our children that. Instead, we teach them a whole bunch of rules. Instead of teaching them that, hey, just be happy. You're okay. Remember to be happy. You're all right. So, Luke, do you have anything to say about this? Don't worry, be happy, huh? That's all there is to it. Ben, what do you think?
Well said. Yeah, everything ties in. Yeah, if you can just get in a state of satisfaction and stay in it long enough, everything falls into place. Like, it's easy. You don't
Actually,
need.
it already was all in place. The only reason why you had thought that things are not in place is because you made up some story of that belongs over there and this belongs over here. And wherever it was, that was okay.
Yeah, because when there's questions, there has to be a questioner, so it just pushes the idea of clinging and grasping to self-view, but from a place of satisfaction that can be dropped too, as it's the biggest piece of baggage we carry around.
Mm-hmm. So we've got two kinds of conflicts with reality. One conflict is, how should it be? We were told that by our families. We were told that by our teachers. It's called idealism. It's called, this is how it ought to be. And things are never the way they ought to be, because the people who are telling you how it ought to be will get into fights with each other over how it ought to be, instead of just seeing like it really is. Now, the other conflict is how you want it to be. So how it ought to be and how you want it to be is often in conflict. And so we're in physical turmoil within our own mind. We've got two rocks in our head, both of them banging up against each other. Instead of just saying, wait a minute, I don't have to have either one of those things. I can just leave things empty the way that they are. So, Ivan, do you have any comments to make?
Yeah, just a very quick one. Like I think when we ask question, a lot of time is actually coming from ignorance. So it's best to not ask too much and just keep practicing. Like because we are coming from the wrong angle to begin with, and it doesn't, you can't get the answer you want because the mind is not fit for work, as Buddhadasa call it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. That in fact, we don't like to be ignorant. All right. Now let's look at it this way. How much knowledge does an individual, let's say someone that's on this list, how much knowledge do they have as opposed to how much human knowledge there is? And then break that down into also how much knowledge is there that humans don't even know. We don't even know what we don't know. So we're always going to be ignorant. When are we going to be satisfied but being ignorant? Why do we keep wanting to know and keep wanting to know? That's why, Karwan, there's so much of this stuff to the teaching of the Buddha, because people just keep wanting to know. No end to it. Santiago, what do you have to say?
I think it's great. I don't have to read the commentaries and the sub-commentaries on the sub-commentaries.
No, you don't have to read the Abhidhamma. You don't have to read the Visuddhimagga. You don't have to read any of that stuff. You don't even have to take courses in physical sciences. You don't even have to learn mathematics. You can just be happy. Amrit, what do you have to say?
Yeah, very enlightening talk, Dhammarato. Thanks a lot. But I would say what Karwan was saying about writing a book and making it simple, I see it a little bit differently. I agree that teachings are very simple, but they are, in a sense, because our hindrances are complex, our hindrances are very active. So they are keep attacking us. So the teachings need to be active as well, right? So it's a little bit different than, say, you study algebra in a class and you go there and you spend maybe a month, and now this knowledge is there in your head. But I think the teaching
Right.
of Buddha is something you have to just keep applying them. So you have to keep them active. And for that reason, actually, just reading a book once would not work, right? So that's why you need to keep meditating or keep going to the Dhamma talks and keep listening them again and again.
Right.
So
We
that's
keep
my
applying. We keep sustaining
yes,
that we're okay. We don't have to know everything. We're all right.
exactly.
Timo, do you have something to say?
Not really, but thanks. I like the part that is as easy as just keeping it going once it's on a roll.
All right. How about you, Carl? Hello, old friend. Good to see you.
Hello. No, nothing to say. Nothing to do.
Nothing to say, nothing to do, no place to go. Wow, what a relief that is. How about you, Paul? Anything to say?
Nothing to add.
I'm sorry I didn't catch that.
Nothing to add.
All right. So today is something a little bit different at the end that Mikey has had to leave. He's on, but he's recording, but he's flown the coop. He's taken his motorbike and gone elsewhere. But meanwhile, Pa Daniel, good to see you. What's your poly name? Kima what?
Mike.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Hey, hey, Dhammarato, and hello, old friends. See many friends on here, so that's great. It's been a while since I've been on here. I think like at least a couple of months. So good to be back. My Pali name is actually Kitty Punyo, and I think it means something like Kitty means like reputation or like fame, something like that, and Punyo. It's like virtue. I'm not sure actually. But yeah, I just wanted to say that since I am back, yeah, I've been staying in the mountains for a while, so I didn't have any internet connection. But if anyone wants to do like a one-on-one call, I'm definitely available now for yeah, at least the next 5 days.
Okay, where are
So
you?
I'm actually at Watsuamok right now.
Ah, my old home. Okay.
Yeah, so it was pretty nice. Like normally, foreign monks like under 5 pansa, under 5 rainy seasons, they are not allowed to stay in Watsuamok. But I was staying at Tapotawan, which is like a branch monastery, about 1 hour away by car from Suamok. And there were like 13 monks visiting from Suamok, so I made good friends with them. And then I got invited to come and stay here for a bit. So it's really nice here. So yeah, really enjoying it. And Tapotawan is also a really good place to stay. Like if anyone comes to Thailand, like super secluded. There's only one other monk there, and there's like a hot spring It's pretty far up in the mountains. Like there's no chanting or anything. You can pretty much do everything by yourself. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with me. And Dhammarato, did you want me to talk about the bike as well?
If you can, let's wait until Mikey's here so that he can do it with you.
Yeah, sure. All right. So
All right.
yeah, that's pretty much the update from my side.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. This has been great. One last person that I note, and that is Krishni. Is that how you say your name?
Yep.
So if you have
Hi,
anything
nice
to
to
add?
nice to see you. I started watching your videos recently, and I appreciate your time. I just say, this moment is, and this moment is all there ever is. There's never anything that's not this moment.
Yes, there was a moment before, but it's gone now. And the only thing that's left is this one. Wait a minute, there he
Yeah.
goes. Got a new one now. All right. So thank you all for joining. I'm really glad to see you. And we'll continue this next week. We'll have 2 calls a week. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Dhammarato. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhammarato, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Sangha.
Thank you, Dhammarato.
Thanks, Dhammarato.
Excellent.
Everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.